so welcome back to the second episode of the Morris Mini 850 build. We're going to start by removing the magic wand. So all we need to do here is just pull back the carpet, remove the rubber boot, and as you saw, there were two bolts on the inside of the selector housing that we need to remove in order to get the gear stick off. I do apologise having to do the voiceover in this because my microphone decided to stop working. So once you've removed these two bolts, we can then pull the gear stick out of the way and then start the disassembly process underneath the bonnet. It is always a good idea to use guard covers, especially when you're working on a car. If it's not yours, most importantly, you want to protect the paintwork as much as you possibly can. Even if it is yours, whether it's got perfect paint on it or even if it has really average paint, you want to ensure that you protect it as best you can. Now, because this had a standard exhaust system on it, it did have the standard V-band style clamp that holds the downpipe from the manifold that goes all the way down to the back of the tailpipe on together. Now these are a bit tricky to get off. They do have two bolts on either side. So in this case, I'm loosening off one, trying to remove it, and then get the other bolt out. Eventually you'll see in a second, I had to release the other bolt on the other side in order to do it. I did end up using a little bit of penetrant. So in my case, I was using WD-40. You can use any sort of rust penetrant to be able to remove any stubborn bolts. It is always a good idea that whenever you are removing anything that gets hot and cold quite often, is to ensure that you use ample penetrant to ensure that it becomes as loose as possible and you're not going to break any component. I was quite lucky in this instance where I applied penetrant to either bolt and it came off quite easily. My idea here was to release the pressure on both bolts and then remove one bolt completely, give it a twist, and hopefully it should come out. In most cases this would work, but in my case I had to remove pretty much both bolts to be able to get it off, and it was quite fiddly. So here what I'm doing is just removing one of the bolts using a ratchet. Because there is a bolt and a nut on either end, I ended up using a combination of a ratcheting spanner, which you can see now, and a standard ratchet. So they go opposing each other, therefore you can remove the bolt quicker. This is a really good method to use, and if you don't have a ratcheting spanner, then that'll work fine. A standard open end or even just a ring spanner, so long as you can get in there, it will help to remove it easier than a normal method. So this process does take a little bit of time because of the amount of corrosion that is on the bolts and because the bolt has been going through so many hot and cold cycles. So this is a very specific job that you'd be doing on your very own Mini if you hadn't done any modifications to it. With my Mini, I do have a 2-into-1 collector, so you don't have any of these bolts whatsoever. They're just slip joints. But as you can see here, I'm just prying off the V-band clamp to try and get some access to there. Finally, with a bit of caressing, she finally comes off. Now the next job that we're going to be doing is removing the inner CV uni joints. Now as far as I'm led to believe, these were the original uni joints that came out with the vehicle, and because over time the rubber can deteriorate and perish, it then lets go and smashes the side of the gearbox casing. We decided to upgrade them when we put it back together. So that was a new job that we decided to do when we started pulling it apart. And you'll find throughout the series there are certain things that we find and that we decide to upgrade at the same time. Now the next job is the dreaded engine mounts on either side. Most people struggle with these, but I find using two spanners or even a spanner and a set of long nose pliers will help to remove these. You can actually buy engine mounts with a enclosed nut on the inside. It does make it easier. So easier installation, but it's entirely up to the person doing the job. So thanks heaps for watching episode 2. Episode 3 is coming up shortly, so hold on to your hats. See you then.